Welcome back to our study in the book of Esther. This is all about renewing of faith. Today we move into chapter 9 out of 10. We're finishing up the book very soon. And today we're looking at repulsions and remembrances. And so there's pushback in the first half of the chapter, and then there's going to become a national holiday in the second. The theme verse of the entire book is something that Mordecai said to his niece Esther. And it was right in the midst of all of a death sentence upon the Jews of the Persian Empire. And Esther's balking and saying, well, if I go see him, I could be killed. And he says, and who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Meaning, not that you could be killed, but it was true. But he says, how do you know that the Lord did not raise you out of nowhere to become the queen of the empire as for such a time to go in and use that position and use the fact that you're his wife to make the request and save our people? And so what an opportunity, what a time to renew faith and to grow in the Lord. And this is where we are in our outline, down in the red area. A map of the Persian Empire, which it was great. It was immense. Went up into Europe, into Africa, and spread greatly into India, in that direction to the east. All right, so this is the return routes during the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, and the routes that they would take to go back and rebuild the temple and the walls. And with that, this is a chronology of the post-exilic period. And the book of Esther fits right in between Ezra chapter 6 and 7. In Ezra 6, and then before 7 starts, there's many, many years in between there. And it's almost like 20-some. And so the book of Esther fits in there very comfortably and fits in chronologically. And the people would know her, and she would know some of them. They're in the other books. Then the best way to review with you would be just to go back one chapter. And the one that says Haman's orders are reversed. Haman, which was not a Jew, knew Mordecai and knew that he was. And Haman was actually made the king Ahasuerus or King Xerxes, the second in command. And as soon as he attained that, he would have parades, he would go out among people, but Mordecai hung out around the legal areas of the palace to just continue to check upon his niece, Esther. Well, Mordecai would not bow to Haman, while most everybody else would, but it was not required that people bow to number 2, only to number 1, the king. And so there were no laws being broke, but there was great hatred established. And so Haman plotted with his wife and closest friends, his power people, not in the palace, but in his home. And the idea came out, hey, let's not just get rid of Mordecai, but let's kill all the Jews. And so Haman goes in and tells a truth and a half-truth and then a bunch of lies about the Jews, and the king issues a law, a decree, that on such and such date all the Jews in the empire to be killed. And it became the law, one of the laws of the Medes and the Persians. It could not be reversed. But what happens is when Esther got to him, the king, after a nation of Jews praying and fasting, the king sees Haman for what he is and orders him hanged on the gallows that he had built for Mordecai. And the word reversed here is not correct, but it was reversed in the sense that the king issued another decree or edict allowing the Jews to defend themselves on the day that the law states that the people can come upon them and to kill them. And so now all of a sudden the Jews are armed throughout the empire and just don't have to stand there or try to hide. They can defend themselves. And that gets us into our story now. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put into execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped or expected to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. You see, the pendulum is swung now. And now there is pushback. The Jews gather themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all the people. So the Jews went on the offensive. They didn't wait for the enemies to come out of their houses or a mob to come around a corner. They knew who hated them. And so they went after them. They went on the offensive and sought them out. And when people that were on the fence, I don't know, we want to kill Jews or do we want to just continue to live with them? We were doing fine. They got off the fence real quick and did nothing. And so there was great fear. We don't want to resist. And all the rulers of the provinces, the lieutenants, deputies, officers of the kings, helped the Jews. Now, all of a sudden, the empire is backing the Jews because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. Mordecai now is number 2 in the empire. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed or walked greater in intensity and greater in intensity. Basically, it's reading that he just continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger in his resolve and his walk with the Lord, and a walk to do right. Now here's the plunder. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan, the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. See, there were 500 men within the palace that hated them, and they had no intention of giving up their power that they had under Haman. They were going to give up their appointed offices. This, you can see that the swamp in the palace is really bad. These were not elected officials or kingly appointed offices. These were people that Haman brought in under him and turned their hearts towards him that were there. Now these are the 10 sons of Haman. And if you look at them, I'm going to read them because it is scripture. And we'll just get into this. And Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Paratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, and Parmashta, and Arasai, and Ariday, and Vajeztha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand. So Haman's sons met the same fate as their dad did. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan, the palace, was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther, the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men of Shushan, the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee, or what is thy request further? and it shall be done. Wow, what a remark, and what an offer by the king to Esther. Then said Esther, If it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done, and the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. See, in those days, you didn't let family members live so that they could have vengeance down the road. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey or the spoil they laid not their hand. The word prey in the Hebrew is spoil. So the 500 just in the palace were all Jew haters, and then it just spread out from there like a rolled out carpet. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew their foes, 75,000. 75,000 are killed, but they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. And so they just killed their enemies. They didn't take their property. They didn't take their things. They just let it be. They said, okay, look, as far as we know, all the people that hate us and want to kill us, they're dead. If they're not, they will be if they come after us. But we don't need to take property and to expand our empire that we have within our nation. Let's move on. And so, if you ever wonder where Purim comes from on our calendar now and on the Jews' calendar, here's where it is and where it's out of. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that were dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. They sent gifts. And now it's a time of remembrance. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both near and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly, establishing a holidays. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor. Now, not only did they share in the feast, but to poor people they sent them gifts. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. You could see what godly Mordecai is, how he's leading the people. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, of which had come unto them, the Jews ordained or rose up, and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing and according to their appointed time every year. And so the 2-day festival of Purim, to remember this time, has been ordained, and it has been risen up like a great banner to all of the people, to ingrain that into their minds, their hearts, to put it in their calendar, and teach their children about it, so that it will perpetuate and they will not forget what God had done for his people while in captivity. And that these days should remember and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city, that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. Isn't it interesting that they put in this that you don't forget, yes, we have a holiday, don't forget what God has done, but understand why God moved, because there was prayer, and there was fasting, and there was cry out to the Lord, there's rededication, there's a return to the Lord. And when that kind of determination and movement of God's people, then God does big things. Always big things. And our last verse in this chapter, and the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Now the book was the book of the laws of the Medes and the Persians. And writing it into the Persian book made it a law upon all Jews to remember the holiday. Then, in renewing our faith, what happens when faith gives us a victory? How should we deal with it as God's people? Well, just a couple of catch little phrases. Anticipate it. Believe. Believe that, just have faith that God can give victories, and God will give a victory in something that you're facing. Anticipate it. Regulate it. Now, what in the world does that mean? To regulate it means to control it in some way. And so when victory is and comes from the Lord, we need to control our reaction, that we just don't go overboard. And it's the feat or the fact that we celebrate instead of the God of our faith that has delivered and has given that to us. You see, the victory is of the Lord. It's not us. Then when we get victories and we win battles, share it, communicate it, tell people about it, and yes, celebrate it. And finally, they commemorated it, and we need to remember it. Remember what God has done. So we have one small chapter, not many verses, and 10 to go. Thank you for sticking with us this far. And Esther's had a lot of great truths and a lot of great life issues that we've learned and can learn from. And just notice that God's people can be in a foreign land and still see great things happen. And you know, we're in a foreign land as Americans. This world is not our home. We're just passing through, but we can have great victories as we do. But we need to understand that they come from the Lord. If I can help you with anything, send you a hard copy. These lessons are taught to a class, and I'll be glad to send you a Word document, which is the lesson itself. Just email me, and they are free. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you for Chapter 10.